And we're back, and we're moving into our third conversation for this morning. As we told you, there are a number of activities coming up that will commemorate Disability Awareness Week, and one of those activities includes a conference that will help parents, educators, and just the general public understand so much more about this group. And we have with us Christy Almeida, who is the founder of Autism Belize, also helping to plan this year's disability conference.
Yeah, we've got about 10 stakeholders helping with the planning. It's being led by the Disability Desk of the Ministry of Human Development, Families and Indigenous People, under total participation, everything with the Office of the Special Envoy. But what they've done is very strategic and smart. They've gotten all of us together that are involved in health and stuff. So we've got Cancer Society, the BCVI, BAPTA, Autism Belize, HelpAge, the National Council for Aging, the Chamber of Commerce, so on. I know I'm forgetting some people, but it's a big group of organizations. And the plan for the conference really is that we want to start talking about a policy for persons with disabilities. And we're hoping that we can have a meaningful discussion during this conference and start even drafting the framework of a policy for all disabilities.
And let's not miss the key thing that you said there. We're not talking about children with disabilities. We're talking about people with disabilities.
People with disabilities,
adults,
all throughout. We're using the same community-based rehabilitation matrix. So we're looking at health, education, social protection, livelihood, and empowerment. So speakers will talk on all of these things because we're hoping that the policy will incorporate all of this. So all levels, and it's not just about building a ramp or a bathroom. Yes, we do need those things. It's not just about inclusive education. It's about making sure we're building towards a truly inclusive society across all boards.
Now, the formatting for the conference, it's going to be online.
Yes, we're doing it virtual. There'll be about 150 participants, those with disabilities, and then those in the different ministries, from transportation to people from the Chamber of Commerce and everything else. So we'll have some invitees, but we will be streaming it live, and we're really hoping that even schools will take the opportunity to watch and participate in this. We don't have anything like this, and we've got to start with a policy for legislation to help with this. So we want society, our entire community, from PG to Orange Walk and Corozal, everyone to tune in and pay attention. Let's have a meaningful discussion about how we can promote and do true inclusion for our society. So it will be streamed live. The majority of the conference will be. And we have a keynote speaker, which is Senator Floyd Morris out of Jamaica. He was actually on the committee that helped draft the UN Convention for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So he's our keynote speaker, and he's been an advisor as we've been planning all of this. We have a lot of local key partners too that will be speaking on the different topics. So it's a good blend of international and local. And so I really think it'd be a good day for everybody to just sort of tune in and listen and
it's really interesting when you said you have the Chamber of Commerce as one of your partners, because I know we've spoken briefly about it before, but employment is an issue. People, I don't know what it's like, but I can't imagine if you have a physical disability or any type of disability having to go and apply for work so that you can survive.
Right.
What's the situation there?
And that's the thing. We have a couple companies who've hired and everything else, but I always say, it's not, inclusion isn't something you have, it's something you do. So we might have a company that will say they'll hire one person with it, and then you think, oh, this is it. And that's part of what the conference is about. We want to explain that it's got to be more than that. And you have to understand their benefits for it. Google will hire someone on the autism spectrum before they hire anyone neurotypical. They are the largest employer of persons on the spectrum, because they realize they don't show up late. People on the spectrum call in less sick than other people. There are benefits to this. And it would be the same thing with other disabilities. There are benefits to having someone there. Not just about, being inclusive and being nice, but they can do the work. Yes, that might mean you have to have a handicapped bathroom, or you might have to do something else, but they can.
Or educate yourself about what may be different in terms of social, what do you call it? The interactions.
And see, and this is it. It's you just don't. When you think about like affirmative action, it wasn't just about hiring that one person and then leaving them to figure it out, right? We learned through history and experience that we have to do more to make sure everything blends and it works properly. So that's what's going to have to happen with the business society, right? It's not just going to be about hiring. It's going to be about us going into that business and doing some sensitization. It's about looking and saying, what are this person's strengths? What are the weaknesses? And how can we make this happen so that they are an asset to the company and to the other employees and everything else as well? Because they can be.
And I guess there's so much we can learn from the experience of inclusion with children, to use that as a sample for inclusion in the wider community. I know you've worked very hard with that with Autism Belize, because it's, yes, you know, you want your child involved in quote unquote a normal school, but it means everyone has to understand.
It's a lot more.
Yeah.
There's a video on YouTube where they have like all these white dots in a circle. And then you've got the colorful dots outside. And that's how it was first, right? All the people with disabilities were on the outside. And then we started putting them in the school and stuff. And then you had this bunch of dots that were right there inside. But it wasn't like you look at it and go, wait, this isn't true inclusion. And that's what it is, right? Yes, you can accept a child with Down syndrome in your classroom. But if they're just sitting in the back in the corner and not meaningfully participate, then that isn't inclusion. And then what we want is that circle where all the dots are all mixed up, the white ones and the colorful ones everywhere. That's how we want it to look. And that's how we want our classroom to look. That's how we want our offices to look. That's how we want society to look. And everyone, if you have that access to these things, health, education, your livelihood, your empowerment, then this is how we can build a really strong Belize. Because we all have something to contribute.
And you know, speaking about the business community, it also occurs to me that a big part of, or a huge issue, that people who may be living with disabilities or people who have family members is also meeting the costs of some of the, perhaps in some cases medication, in some cases equipment for physical support or something. That's also a huge area that perhaps doesn't get talked about as well, even just access to wheelchairs and things like that. So is that also an area that's going to be discussed, just sort of access to those types of support?
Access to it. I mean, I was invited to participate in this thing on agriculture because they're looking at this thing and they go, we want your input. And my first thought was, well, I know about one or two farmers who have a disability, but how many? I mean, lands department is on the second floor of a building. How can they be able to even access the department? So we're talking about very basic stuff too. But then we have to think about there's a lot of technology that can assist farmers with disabilities. There's all of these augmented devices that can help with it. So we do have to look at all of this, because right now, like even with my son, I can send him to school, but the only way the school will accept him is if he has a shadow. And that means I have to pay. So I have to pay tuition, and then I've got to pay for his paraprofessional. And these are coming at cost for parents. They say a child with a disability can cost up to about 6 times as much as a normal child. So these parents are struggling, and sometimes they go, why don't you do this, or why don't you get them this, or whatever. And you don't realize the amount of cost it takes just that we're incurring just to try and get them into the classroom. Not necessarily that they're going to be inclusive and being involved and everything else, but I'm just doing all of it, spending all this money just to try and get him into the classroom. Imagine those who can't or couldn't afford that. Then, you know, they're not even getting it. You know, we sit here and we judge parents and we're like, well, they're keeping them at home. They don't take them to school. They don't do this. And you know,
they have no idea.
And I'm like, you don't understand. You don't know that it's not really easy to get our children into school at all, you know?
And I mean, but it's going back to what I said with kids, and even in the workplace or in wider society, if you don't sensitize everyone else, then sometimes you're putting them in to be bullied.
Yes, and that's the thing, and we don't get that a lot. We think the inclusive thing will benefit just the person with disability. That's not true. It really benefits everyone. You have a child with a disability in a classroom. All of a sudden, these kids are learning to accept something that's different. And it's not just about learning to accept someone that's on the spectrum or somebody who is blind, but they start opening their minds to, wait, it's okay that this person is different, because that's it. And so when we're in society and we're having our fights and walking and crime and all of these things, a big part of it is because we're just thinking about ourselves. We're not looking out and thinking, wait, I'm struggling, this person might be struggling, let's talk about this. And an inclusive society, someone who's accepting and recognizing that there are other people who are suffering, or there are other people who have differences that get that, are much more willing to come to the table and say, let's talk or let's do this because they get this. And if we keep in our own bubble with the people at ourselves, we're not getting that.
Who's the ideal target that you want to tune into the disability conference?
Honestly, I want it across the board because
Yeah.
this is a policy that will be across the board.
Yes.
So I'm hoping some high schools are going to say, and even like Sixth Form UB will say, today your class is attend the conference, write a paper, do whatever, but watch the conference.
Nice.
I want businesses, if they've got a TV in their office, if you're in the bank or whatever, put it on. Yes, you might not be able to pay attention 100% to everything, but our average citizen needs to hear this.
Yeah.
They need to start, once we get this education thing across, we do the sensitizing, it's going to be so much easier for everyone. Whether it's someone who's battling with cancer or a student, you know, and for so long we do it on our own. You know, NARCI is a part of our stakeholder thing, and they've been really trying to work with education, whatever, but they're one little unit. You can only do so much, right? Inspiration Center is desperately trying to help the kids. They're a part of it. They're only doing so much. But by coming together for us, we can put together this conference and start drafting a policy.
Yeah.
If everyone out there starts watching and stuff, that will also make it easier so that when we approach you and say, hey, would you think about hiring someone or working with someone, then you might say, okay, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn because I've listened and I know that there might be benefits to this instead of just being closed off.
Nice. So the date?
November 30th, it's a Tuesday. It's going to be all day. I mean, there's going to be some points where they're breakout groups and then they'll just be, you know, ads or whatever that are aired. But the speakers will start. We'll start with a keynote and then address each one. And like I said, it'll be streamed live on social media. So anyone and everyone, I really think this is something, this should be a country thing.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And I think that's also part of the problem with our policies. Sometimes we draft it and then we make legislation and people don't know.
Yeah.
Right? They don't know. But let's get the whole community involved. So the business community might say, okay, I see what you're taking, I take your point, but. And we want to hear the buts because then we can address it, you know. My mom taught me English in high school. And when she taught you to write a thesis, it was all about first you have to think about what the antithesis is. What are your arguments that you expect to face?
Yeah.
If you do that, then you can prepare a stronger argument. That's what we got to do. We got to listen to all sides so that we have a strong document and something that we can use for our people.
All right. That takes place on November 30th. Of course, this is just an early preview of what is to come. Christy, we thank you for coming in and telling us about it. People can put it down on their calendars so they don't miss the opportunity.
Thank you so much for having me, and I hope you'll have me back before because we have a whole week of activities too. This is only one thing. So
yes, the whole 16 days comes up in the end of the month, so we are anticipating more.
Wonderful.
But thank you.
Thank you.